Welcome back to the Pat Kenny Show here on News Talk. How did we come up with that name for the show, says you? Yes, indeed, a good one there by me. Well, usually in times of turmoil and political instability, it's nice to have the uplifting world of sport to turn to, unless, of course, you happen to be an Ireland rugger fan or a Man U footy fan. Guilty on both counts, Your Honour. As you know, I'm a massive United fan. I've been to many big games there. I still get goosebumps when I recall sitting in the stands at Old Trafford, singing with the United faithful in unison, Kino, 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 just like that. And when I met Roy recently, I was telling him of that very happy memory, and he just looked at me, or through me, perhaps is more accurate. He said nothing, and then just walked away. Yes, I could tell how moved he was by the retelling of that particular tale. And yes, that's Roy for you, a gas ticket. Anyway, the big question for the rugger fraternity is what's happened to the Ireland team in Japan. I'm delighted to have with me on the phone, live from Japan, the man himself, Joe Schmidt. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, hello, Patrick.
Yeah. How are preparations going? I presume you're right in the midst of dealing with the preparations for the clash with the mighty Samoans.
Yeah. The players had last weekend off, and
yes.
But I've been studying footage of Samoan defensive lines all third and fourth phase. But I'm just about to get stuck into a tape of Samoan breakdown clear-outs since 2011, which I'm also pretty excited about.
Yes, I can imagine. Ireland seemed to be struggling with the humidity more than most. Isn't it the same for everyone, though, Joe?
It's not, to be honest. We've actually taken a measurement of the internal temperature of every member of our squad, well, the ones that aren't injured, and on average, they're naturally 7.6 degrees warmer than our opponents. So Tyke Furlong is actually 32.7 degrees hotter by nature, which is why most of the time he has a head like a boiled ham.
Yes, indeed. Yes, of course, the rules of rugger are complex, aren't they? Very complex. In fact, they're so complex that they're not called rules at all. They're called laws, which is pretty confusing, even for someone with a degree in engineering like me. But how will you cope with the Samoans? How will you differ your game from what's gone before? What about picking Johnny Sexton? That might be an idea because he's pretty good, you know, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Although I suppose injury would be a concern with Johnny, wouldn't it? What happens if some massive Samoan with an apostrophe in the middle of his name and a tattoo where the sun don't shine juggernauts his way through Johnny and slap, bang, wham, he gets injured? What happens then, Joe? No Johnny?
Yeah. Again, that's not really in our control. So
I suppose you could start Carberry, couldn't you, leaving Johnny on the bench, and then when Carberry gets injured, which shouldn't take too long, you could bring Johnny on, put him at full back, avoiding that sort of mad contact, and putting Rob Kearney or Jordan Larmour at out half. What about that, Joe?
Yeah, that wouldn't really make much sense.
I did a bit of coaching myself, Dorky under 8s, and we tried to play a more expansive game, certainly than Ireland are playing at the moment. And I thought, what about bringing Simon Zebo out, Joe? Have you thought of Simon Zebo?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Or maybe not. Finally, Joe, some controversy about whether the game is going to be played or not because of a typhoon. How will you prepare for that, Joe?
Part of our process is not to concern ourselves with things outside of our control. So what tangible benefit is there in worrying about typhoons?
Yes, tangible benefits indeed. Good point, Joe. Finally, Joe, you picked Jack McCarthy, didn't you, to start against Japan. Was that a mistake, Joe? A bad mistake? Do you regret that one, Joe?
Yeah, Pat, Johnny was actually carrying a knock that week, and I've made that pretty clear that we tend to try and avoid picking players who are in fact injured, which is why we picked Jack Carty. What a f***ing moron.
Yes, Thanks, Joe. Thanks for that. Well, no wonder things are going pear-shaped for Joe. Not willing to listen to common sense. Right, we'll take a break.
Risteárd's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.